All right, so I had a request maybe a month or two ago to talk about different needle sizes. And while there are a huge amount of different needle types and different sizes of needles out there, tonight I'm just focusing on the needles used for bag making because that's kind of what we're about over here. So again, I'm going to step over to the side camera, show you a couple of different needle packets that I have in my stash. And also I made a little graphic for needle sizes and types of needles for bag making. So I'll show you the needles first, and then Danny's going to throw up that graphic for you on the screen. All right, so let's get this stuff out of the way. So here's 3 packets of Schmetz brand needles. Oh, sorry about that, the glare. All right, so here's 3 packets of needles that I have in my stash. Danny's going to try to zoom in so we could see the numbers clearly on the packets of needles. Okay, so if you'll notice, there's something in common that all 3 packets have. So all 3 packets have, it says 130, 705 on these 2, and this one just says 130. So the 130, 705 just means that these needles are meant for sewing on a home sewing machine. So that's what that first set of numbers means. In reference to needle size, so I'm going to look at these top stitch needles. It says 9014. So the higher number in the series of numbers, so either 9014 or 116, the highest number of the 2 is the European metric unit, and the lower number, so the 14, is the American unit. And these numbers stand for the needle shaft diameter, so basically the amount of measurement it takes to go around the needle. That's the diameter. So the 90 means, because it's metric, it means 0.9 millimeters or 0.90 millimeters. The finer the fabric that you're sewing with, the lower the needle size. So that means the 1016 needle would be meant for fabric that's thicker than the 9014. So that makes sense since these are G needles. Okay, so Danny's going to throw a graphic up on the screen right now, and we're going to talk through some of these needles. And if you look at the graphic, there's really not a huge amount of needles that I would use in bag making. And again, this is just based on the fabrics that I generally use. I'm generally using quilting cottons or things like a thin leather or vinyl. So the first 2 lines on the list say universal or microtex. The first listing is 8012, and that particular needle size is used for shirtings, rayon, or light wool. I used a light wool when I recently made my Tudor bag. The second line says universal or microtex 9014. That's the needle I use pretty much all of the time, and that's for medium weight fabric if you think of quilting cotton, and for top stitching. So the difference between the universal needle and the microtex needle is the universal needle is has a slightly rounded point because it's suitable for sewing with both wovens and knits, and the microtex is slim and has an acute angle, and Danny explained to me earlier the acute angle means it's a tight angle, very tight angle. Below my logo in the middle, there's 2 other needles that I might possibly use for bag making, and that's the jeans denim needle. The sizes I would use would be either 9014 or 116, and that's for use with obviously denim, but also can be used for heavy outdoor fabric and tightly woven fabric. The other day I was making a cooler because I was working on the Minikins cooler for Minikin season 2, and I was using a duck cloth or an outdoor fabric, and I had to go out and get the denim needle for using that. And I noticed, because I had a little strip of quilting cotton in that same project, when I was using that denim jeans needle on the quilting cotton, I could hear it puncturing the fabric, and my stitches were a little bit crooked. So it really is super important that you pay attention to what needle you're using and based on what fabric you're using for the project. It really does matter. It makes a difference. So that denim needle has a strong shaft for dealing with that jeans or denim or outdoor heavy fabric. The 4th needle that I have in the listing is the leather 9014 needle, which can be used for all leather and vinyl. And the important thing to know about a leather needle is a cutting point needle, so it's designed to slice, so not just go in between the weave of the fabric. It's meant to actually slice through it, so that's why it's made for leather and vinyl. Several common brands of sewing machine needles are Schmetz, Oregon, or Singer. All right, Danny, thank you for that graphic. I hope that made sense and kind of explained a little bit more about needles and different needle sizes. I know it can look overwhelming, so that's why I broke it down by just needles that I would use for bag making. Obviously, those are just needles I would commonly use based on the fabrics that I use. Obviously, if you're using different fabrics for your bags than the ones that I just explained, you'll want to purchase the appropriate needle based on your fabric. That's super important, as I already mentioned. So I have a question for you. Let me know in the comments, what brand of needles do you usually buy? As I mentioned, the common brands are Schmetz, Oregon, or Singer. Maybe you have a different brand that you use. I initially started sewing with the Oregon needles, which I really love. I also love the Schmetz Microtex needles. Those have served me well, especially for dealing with cork or vinyl. So let me know in the comments what type of needle that you usually buy.